Well, hello, everyone. This is Mike Campice, Managing Director of Conselmer's Division of Education, here for a special edition of Backstage with my very good friend, Dr. Oneill Sanford. Dr. Sanford is a clinician and consultant for Conselmer. We've had a great relationship with you, Dr. Sanford, now for, I think, over 13 years in our partnership with the HBCU National Band Directors Consortium, which you're also currently interim executive director there as well. But wonderful to have you join us today for Backstage. Want to share with all of our viewers your background. You've had such a historied background in regards to music education, where you've started your career and where it's taken you even to today with the activities that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Sanford.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So just to start things off, where are you at today? You're down in the South, correct?
I'm down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I retired from my profession about 5 years ago. Been down here about 5 years and just in the process of trying to learn how to be retired.
Awesome. Oh, that's amazing. So where did things start for you? Where did your musical journey begin that got you to Baton Rouge, Louisiana?
Well, it actually started at home because my mom was a musician, and a great aunt that I had was a musician. They played the piano. And my great aunt gave the piano to my mom, so I grew up around music. My mom playing and, of course, going to church and the community. The one thing that I would say that kind of influenced me going in this direction, during those earlier years in my life, my mom, we lived out in the country, about 20 miles north of Baton Rouge, in a little town called Slaughter, Louisiana. It was nothing there but the trees and the chickens and the cows for us to do. And my mom really hated living in the country. And she was an educator, and she always practiced exposing us to new things. So every summer, when I was a small, we were 5, 6 years old. We were all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to back, year apart, siblings. She would carry us down to New Orleans every summer. The next day after school was out, she wanted to get us out of the country, to get us to a new culture and experience new things. During the visit there, my aunt would take my sisters shopping, and it was all, all of my siblings were females, and I was the only guy. I didn't want to be with them when they were doing the girly things, like, can slips and all of that. I didn't want to be around that stuff.
Yeah.
So she would drop me off at the Louis Armstrong Park, what's now known as the Louis Armstrong Park, where there were trombone players out there with jazz bands or brass bands out there playing in the park. And I remember being a little child hearing the trombone go, bah, I like to slide, and being able to slide up and down and change that. So that kind of got my attention on the trombone. But we did that every summer. And then back in my community and the school system where I grew up, we only had elementary and high school. And we didn't have music in the elementary schools. We went to high school. First thing I did when I got to high school was try it out. Went straight to the band teacher and said I wanted to play in band. And she gave me a rhythm test, and I flunked the rhythm test and didn't get in band my 9th grade in high school.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, I flunked the test. And of course I was looking for something to do and was pretty good at football. And the coach talked me into football, but a 250-pound lineman changed my mind about football my freshman year there. Fortunately for me, the band teacher was a female, and she became pregnant and had to take a maternity leave. And when she did, another band director came from New Orleans, Mr. Earl Cherie, which was really my first professional mentor. He came from New Orleans. I went straight to the band room and told him I wanted to play in the band and play the trombone. And he asked me if my parents would buy me an instrument. And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure. He said, stay after school and I'll drive you home. He did, came home, ate dinner with us, told my parents that I expressed interest in playing the trombone, but they didn't have any instruments, and would they be willing to buy an instrument? My dad said, Oneill, do you really want to do this? Because you know how I am. If we start this, you gotta finish it. And I said, yes. And we got up from dinner and went straight to the music store and bought a used trombone. Actually, it was from Sears Roebuck.
And this was in ninth grade?
This was in the 10th grade. I was in
10th grade now. Okay.
Yes,
So
I didn't really get my hand on the instrument until I was in 10th grade.
so you hung on to that aspiration for the trombone from all your trips to New Orleans.
That's exactly right. That's what happened. And we bought this trombone that I call a pea shooter with the bell on it about an inch and a half larger than the present day trumpet. It was really, really a small bore on the instrument, but it worked. I think paid $75 for it, or $50. And then I came back, got in the band my sophomore year, and at the end of my sophomore year, they voted me, the band students, and voted me to be the president of the band, of the band. And I became the president my junior year, and I remained in that position all the way through high school. So that's how I really first got started with the instrument.
So then you had the decision coming out of high school then, what am I going to do with this? You know, you have this music going now with the trombone. So what steps happened for you after high school?
Well, after high school, 2 years afterwards, 2 weeks after getting out of high school, I mean, I didn't have a choice, nor did my siblings have a choice. We were programmed and told by my dad, mom, and grandparents that we were going to go to college. So I went straight to college and filled the application out, got the application done, and it said major, what you want to major in. And then the only thing that I thought I could probably do well in at that time was engineering, because I was in a industrial arts class, and I had excelled in that class. I went to a state festival, won 3rd place in the state festival, and so I'd sign up as an engineering major when I first went to Southern. And then after being there for a couple of weeks, my first mentor, my high school band director who lived in New Orleans, found out that I had registered in college as an engineering major, and he drove from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, found me on the campus at Southern University, went and got my horn, encouraged me to go and audition for music. And of course, I thought the guy was God. He was, like I say, my mentor. And I went and auditioned and passed the audition. And then I changed my major from engineering to music education.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's how I got there.
And then you went through Southern, and with that program, what was the experience and where did that take you?
Oh, well, I went through Southern, was fortunate enough to pick up some great friends along the way. They were trombone players, Paul Adams, Moses Hall, Al Thomas. It was about 5 trombone players came in, and we learned from each other and graduated from Southern in 4 years with our degrees. And then right immediately after finishing that, getting our degree, about a week later, my second mentor, who was the gentleman who auditioned me, had heard about a job in Ferry, Louisiana in high school, and he just called me and told me to go and apply for the job. He had already recommended me, and I went and applied and became the band director at the high school in Ferry, Louisiana for 1 year.
And this is roughly what, 1965 or so, right there?
That was 1965.
Yeah, yeah. So what was it like going into the profession during that period of time in the mid-1960s?
Well, I mean, I didn't really know what it was supposed to really what it was supposed to be like. Just go out and get started with the band. Well, the one experience that I share with people all the time when I first got there was at the school. About 2 weeks after I had gotten there and kind of gathered the students up and did inventory and what have you, I found out that the principal of the band had been doing an event in a local city far away, and he had already committed the band to go, and I had probably 23 and one half players, and you know, tubas with no mouthpiece in, and drums. I had about 30 kids, and I hadn't even really had any lessons. So I decided that I wasn't going to. The kids were not ready to go, and I decided not to take the kids. And the principal got upset with me and fired me because I wouldn't agree to take the band to that first event. So I got fired after being on the job for about 2 weeks. And fortunately for me, and probably for the kids too, after that weekend was over, what my second mentor, Dr. Perkins, a guy who auditioned me and had gotten a job for me, I told him about it. He called the principal and explained to him, and they talked, and he hired me back the following week. And then I went forward with the program and was able to get some new equipment, increase the participation to about 50, 60 players, you know, at the end of my first year there. And so that was my high school experience.
And then you moved into higher education, Mississippi Valley State, then to Virginia State. And after that, a pretty big thing happened in 1976, right around that time, with University of Minnesota. So talk about your journey and what got you to that point.
Well, after completing my first year in high school, my college band director showed up at my home in Baton Rouge, where we were visiting my parents, and he wanted me to travel to Michigan with him to my first ever clinic, and went to University of Michigan with him, and to my first clinic, and had my experience with Bill Rebelli, Scared to Death, and in the Royal Simple. I had a great experience. I heard and saw things that I had never seen before, like a bass clarinet, counter bass clarinets, and things like that, and had a great experience, you know, on that trip. And he paid all of my expenses. And on the way back, he said, "Oneill, you know, you're a college band material, and I think that you're going to be a great college band director." And I didn't have a clue as to what he was talking about. And when we got back to Baton Rouge, I got another call from the same gentleman who had found my job at Faraday, telling me about a job at Mississippi Valley State. So, you know, I interviewed for that job, and the job was teaching trombone and arranging for the band. Went there, became the assistant director, stayed the assistant director of trombone, teacher and arranger for the band for 5 years. And then he moved up to the chairman of the Department of Music, and I became the director of bands at Virginia State. And then going into my second year at Virginia State, entered the band in the first ever so-called Battle of the Bands in Irving, Texas. Took our band there, and from Mississippi Valley, we won 5 of 6 trophies. And that kind of went viral, and the news got out, because then it was heard about, you know, throughout the HBCU world. And then I got another call from that same gentleman telling me about another job at Virginia State College. And so I left, auditioned, interviewed for the job at Virginia State College, and took the job there. Got a big increase in salary of about $10,000. That was big money back in 1966. No, I'm sorry, that was 1973. And that was a lot of money. So I took the job there, moved my family to Virginia State, where I was, inherited a medium-sized program, grew that program, stayed there for 3 years. At the end of my 3rd year, one of my colleagues at Virginia State College told me about another job and thought I should apply for it. He said it's University of Minnesota. I said, "What? Minnesota, are you kidding? That cold weather?" I said, "Man, I'm not going up there to Minnesota, forget that." And we were having coffee, and we talked, and he was actually chairman of the Department of Music at the time. He said, "Well, are you trying to get rid of me, or what's going on?" You know, I said, "Oh, no, this job is open." And I said, "Well, you know, that's a predominantly white university. They're not going to hire me up there anyway." And he said, "Oh, I'm not sure about that." So what he did is he went forward and sent my resume, a letter of interest to the University of Minnesota. And
Did you know he did that or no?
absolutely not. All at once, I got a letter in the mail from university saying, thanks for your interest in a job. We'd like for you to send additional information. And I went to show the letter to my friend, Dr. Carl Harrison. He just started laughing. He said, Oneill, I sent that because I would hate to lose you here, but I think that Big Ten, that you're ready to go and you could get that job. And if you got it, you would do a great job. So I sent additional information up there, and then I ended up at the University of Minnesota being the first African-American to be the conductor of the mainstream university band. And I didn't have a clue about where I was going and what I was doing, frightened to death, and frightened, very, very frightened.
And that was a big deal to set up for a lot of future music educators going forward, for you to be able to take that position at Minnesota. That's tremendous.
It opened a lot of doors, you know, for me. And then, of course, several of my students, former students at Virginia State College, came up there. One of my colleagues also came up there and got in the graduate program at the university while I was there, and got to have master's and doctorate degrees during my tenure as a band director. And that opened a whole another world up there. Actually, it was about 5 students, and all of them came through, with the exception of one who dropped out. All of them got their master's and doctorate degrees from the university. Now, that was a great experience for me. Probably just, I grew so much because I was in a position where I was kind of rubbing elbows and interacting with, you know, the dominant directors in the field at, you know, Northwestern and Michigan State and Purdue, Ohio State. I was mixing it up with those guys, and ended up having great relationships with them. I learned a whole lot from them, gained their confidence. I actually became the vice president of the Big Ten Band Directors Association, and was scheduled to be the president the year that I left, going to University of Pittsburgh. So after 9 years at the University of Minnesota, University of Pittsburgh recruited me, and I left Minnesota and went to Pittsburgh.
So what got you to go to Pitt? You know, being at University of Minnesota, that seems like a dream job. So what happened?
What happened was I had gone in at the time that, you know, what everybody was talking about, systemic racism at the time, and pressure was being put on mainstream universities to hire minorities in the position. The University of Pittsburgh was looking for a band director, and the program was under the Department of Athletics, and they call around the various schools. As a matter of fact, called up to the University of Michigan trying to locate a director to come and take the band. And a gentleman by the name of, you probably know him, Dr. Reynolds, Bob Reynolds, who was actually the director of bands of the Wind Ensemble, a whole bit up there. But Bob recommended me for the job. And the reason that, you know, I got a lot of attention, because they were looking to deal with and challenge this ongoing thing about, you know, hiring minorities, systemic racism, and the whole bit. And I went there, and they hired me in that position at that particular time, and it was a great position to be in. So that's how I got there.
Yeah. So from Pitt, how many years were you there then before you moved on from there?
I was at Pitt for 10 years.
For 10 years.
For 10 years. Yeah. Did some wonderful experiences at the University of Pittsburgh, traveled to Dublin, Ireland, and played for professional football, went to some big football classics out in Arizona, did all of that stuff. And coming up to my 10th year, my mom and dad had aged. And we had family property, some rental property down in Louisiana. And my dad wasn't really cooperating, you know, with the family. because I only had sisters and I was the only, he was a nail shamanist and he didn't think that women should be doing certain things. So my mom called me and told me for the first time that she had cancer, uh, terminal cancer that had set in, and that she needed me to come home to take care of the family business. And so I had ended up taking an early retirement from the University of Pittsburgh, moving my family back to Louisiana to take care of my parents for 2 years. And so that's how that ended my time of tenure at Pittsburgh. I came down to Louisiana, was with my parents, for 2 years. My mom moved on. During my 2-year tenure in Louisiana, I had an experience that I had never had. One of my cousins was a principal at a middle school. I had never taught in a middle school before. So when he found out I was home, he came to me and said, "Oh, you're down here. Why don't you come and start me a band program at the middle school?" And I said, "Man, I don't know anything about teaching middle school kids." And of course, he convinced me that he was going to buy new equipment and whatever I needed to do it. And he went and did that. And I became a middle school director for 1 year in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And boy, was that an awakening for me.
Goes full circle to your beginning there a little bit, doesn't it?
Oh man, I had never been around junior high students, man. Those kids came in there, they were fired up, swinging on lights, and and just out of control. And I was finally had to learn how to manage it, and I was able to manage it pretty good. Ended up at the end of my first year there with about 40 some students in the program. Wrote them a school song, and we played for graduation. And so it was a great experience, that one experience, but it was pretty scary at the beginning. But I had to take control, and once I took control, things fell in place pretty good.
Well, if it's the one thing I've seen out of you, Dr. Sanford, is the word retirement is not really in your vocabulary. You've tried a few times. And
well, that was my second one. There are a couple more.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, you had a great tenured professor position at Norfolk State University, and then became the principal recruiter, Department of Music for 3 years, director of bands for 2 years at Jackson State University. And then you retired once again. And, and with that, what I'd like to do with the time we have left is jump into that post-retirement activity that you've been doing, which, the HBCU National Band Directors Consortium, obviously you started that as you were still a director of bands, but would like for you to touch on the founding of that organization that I think has done so much for the HBCU schools. How did that come about, and who put that together with you?
Well, it came about after I finished that 2 years down in Louisiana, taking care of my parents and a whole bit, and I got the job at. I wanted to go back to an HBCU school because I had wonderful experiences up there with unlimited budgets at Pitt and unlimited budgets at the University of Minnesota. And I had my first time was in programs that were complete programs, total instrumental music programs. And I became exposed to that. When I got to Norfolk State, they had a program there, but the challenges were they didn't have the funding and the instruments and blah, 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 to go there. Interestingly, one of the gentlemen who hired me was one of my former students from Virginia State College. He had become the chairman of the Department of Music there, and he just kind of bumped up on my letter of inquiry and found out that I was looking for a job, and he's the one that hired me. But, moving forward, once I returned there, and I started working and interacting again with HBCU band directors and traveling around, it was like deja vu for me. The band programs had not progressed. And I had been away for 19 years, and they hadn't progressed because they didn't have the proper funding to be able to buy all of the equipment, what necessary to do what they needed to do. And then I became concerned about music education majors who were not getting that total experience with, while they were in college, which was the same place where I was when I left Southern University. We did not have adequate equipment and instrumentation to have a wind ensemble and a total wind ensemble and a total instrumental music program. So when it became aware to me after 2 years of being back at the HBC, I said, look, we got to do something about this. And so I got on the phone and I started talking with my colleagues and friends, first with my staff. I had a terrific staff, at Norfolk State that I had put together because I had become the chairman of the Department of Music. So I handpicked my staff, found the money, brought my best friend in, Paul Adams, and he brought 2 of his former students and colleagues in, Mr. Bethea and Ms. Sanders, and then one of my former students, Tim Zachary, Dr. Zachary, who's now the director of bands at Prairie View A&M University, and put those guys' heads together, and then we started coming up with a concept. Called my go-to friends at the various universities and shared my experience, talked them into a meeting down in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's when the organization was born or founded. So I, along with my staff at Norfolk State and about 8 other guys, put it together, wrote it up, and bam, and we just completed our 17th year, and it's been great success. So that's how that happened. And the whole idea of the organization was to do what? See that the students and these schools who did not have fully instrumentated ensembles, have the experience of playing in a fully instrumentated concert band, jazz ensembles, and so they have that experience before they go out in the job market and compete for, jobs and the global job market. So that's how, and the whole purpose of that thing happened.
Well, we've been fortunate enough to be a partner with the HBCU Consortium now for over 13 years, and it's a great experience, and we're looking forward to being back in person with it next year as well. And I know you and the board are working hard at what those plans look like going forward. So yeah, really, really appreciative of all those efforts. So with the consortium now, and you've been helping us at Conselmer, going, visiting schools and helping them with their programs across the country and whatnot. We have many folks that are getting their music education degrees and so forth. Just to kind of close this out in today's edition of Backstage, your formula for success as a music educator, how would you best, if you're talking to any active directors or those that are aspiring to music education, what are the big pieces that you've learned through the years? You've shared decades and decades of experience, but what are some of the core things for those educators that you'd like to share, Dr. Sanford?
You have to have a passion for the profession. You have to love it, and you have to own it. And you have to be ambitious and committed to it. The one danger with the profession, and I tell young people all the time who are married with families, that is a very sensitive issue because it requires a lot of time, and therefore transparency with your spouse and the mother of the children and the children is very, very important. You have to explain to them profession. And my wife, Rosa, for 57 years, she understood it, and she explained to the boys why I could not be there on Friday night at the football game because I was at rehearsal making money so Daddy could pay for what for the shoes you need for football. So yeah, she was able, to handle that, and I was blessed to, to have her understanding that, and so you have to be transparent with them and make sure that they understand that your family is important for that. You have to have great communication skills and positive attitude about it. You're responsible for what? Selling the program. That is to everybody. You have to sell it to the students. First of all, those are the ones that's going to have to display it for you, and the administration. Then the alumni comes along. You got to deal with that in the community, and you have to stay in tune and touch with the changing trends, you know, in the profession, you know, and make sure that the kids have the proper equipment and materials they need in order to be able to do what? To advance. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And the key to, especially in a university situation, and also wherever you are, is your administration. You have to be able to sell them that program. You may not be able to get to the president at the university, but you've got to find someone in the university who can get to the president. I've done things like when I wanted to get a point over, I wanted things leave. I went to the president's office once at Norfolk State, and I got there early that morning, and I had some instruments that were all beat up and no valves in them. And of course, we beat them up a little more before I carried them to the president, got them in there, pulled a couple slides out, and all of the green gunk on the slides and stuff. And I was waiting there when the president came in, and he said, "What is this mess in my office?" And I was sitting there, and she said, "Oneill, why are you bringing this mess over here?" I said, "Hey, well, you know, you want a band, look what your kids are playing, you know." And so I was able to sell her on that. And luckily, this particular president was a violinist, and she played in a symphony orchestra. I said, "I can't get the kids to play a tune. Look at," said, "Get that mess out of here." And then she called the vice president and said, "Hey, give it Oneill, find out how we can get some equipment." So you have to do all kinds of things in order to be able to get to it, to you know, the administration. I would park at the building. If I knew what time the president was coming in, I would park in, get there earlier, see her pull up in her car, and then be standing inside the door. When she get out the car and start walking in, I walk out the building and I would meet her on the driveway and say, "I need to see you for a few minutes. Can I walk you to your office?" And then anything to get you what?
Advocacy. Yeah.
To be able to directly connect with what the administration. And then there was another president that I couldn't quite do that with, but I had a friend, his wife worked for the president, so I still was able to get that done. So you have to do whatever is necessary, you know, in line, understand the rules and regulations and guidelines, you know, to follow and make sure you do things the right way in order to sell your program. That's what it's all about. You have to.
Yeah. I think we spend a lot of time thinking about K through 12 public education advocacy, but it's the same at the higher education level, and the approach is very similar in respects to that.
Well, it's very, you know, up there. It's tough up there. It's easy to start a band boosters club. The only thing in high school and K through 12, because, you know, you're in contact with the parents, you know, and then, you know, you get the parents in the room, you can sell them about, you know, Alice and John don't want to play the trumpet, and you can get them going on that. And you can do that, though. At college, you got students from all over the world, you know, coming at you. You can't have a band boosters organization like you can. Yeah, so it's a little bit tough. It's more political, you know, on the university. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Sanford, I appreciate you taking us on a journey of your over 55 years of music education experience. It's been very enlightening, and I always learn something new when we have these conversations. To our audience, I just want to put out there as well, we have an HBCU collective webinar that we're doing every Wednesday, last Wednesday of the month, and we're going to be covering a lot of topics in the months ahead in regards to the advancement of HBCU music education and things that can be done. And I know Dr. Sanford's joined us for a few of those as well. So please tune in, and we'll make sure that everyone has the schedule of the upcoming events. But Dr. Sanford, thank you so much for being here with me today. Always great spending time with you, and thanks for all you do for music education.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. The only thing that I've got 40 more years I'd like to share with you. Oh man, I've had a blast. You know, I've been blessed. I've had a blast and experience. I've got some terrific students, you know, out there, and I've got friends all over the world. You know, and I'd say kind of international kind of guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of the travel, and you know, I'm most proud of my graduates and students who are in the programs under me. As a matter of fact, I have something like 20 25 plus of my former students from HBCU schools that are now directors in college and mainstream universities and HBCU schools, and probably 150 students who are band directors in, you know, K through 12 schools, and I love it. And you know, I don't know if I had anything to do with it or not, but I'm very proud of those students, and that's one of my major achievements.
Yeah, you've paved the way for many, Dr. Sanford, for sure. So we'll continue to work with you and you know, just enjoy the collaboration and the impact that you've had on so many. So thank you for having this time together, and let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it.